Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to hold on to something, the faster it seems to slip away? Think about a relationship. You love someone, and in that love there is fear. Fear that they might leave, fear that they might change. And so you hold tighter. You become possessive. You become controlling. You make demands. And in that very act of trying to secure what you have, you start to destroy it. The other person feels trapped. They feel suffocated. And soon enough, the thing you feared most begins to happen. They start to pull away. This is not only true in relationships. It's true with our ambitions, our possessions, even our ideas about who we are. The more we cling to an identity, the more fragile it becomes. The more we clutch onto money, status, or success, the more anxious we feel about losing it. It's as if the act of grasping itself creates the possibility of loss. Krishnamurti often said that fear and attachment are two sides of the same coin. Wherever there is attachment, there is fear. And wherever there is fear, there cannot be freedom. Think of sand in your hand. Hold it gently, and it stays. Squeeze it tightly, and it slips through your fingers. That's the paradox of life. What you try to control will eventually escape you, but what you allow to be free often remains close. This is not some mystical idea. It's observable in everyday life. Look at children. When you try to force them into a mold, they resist. When you give them space, they often come closer on their own. Or consider creativity. When you strain to force inspiration, your mind goes blank. But when you relax, when you let go, ideas flow effortlessly. The question is, why do we cling in the first place? At the root of it is fear. We are afraid of emptiness, afraid of being alone, afraid of the unknown. So we hold on to people, to beliefs, to possessions, to routines. We tell ourselves, if I can just secure this, I'll be safe. But life doesn't work that way. Life is movement. Life is change. Nothing stays fixed. Not your youth, not your relationships, not your beliefs. And when we fight against this movement, we suffer. Krishnamurti once said that the mind is always seeking security. It builds walls of attachment and belief to protect itself, but those walls become prisons. You may feel secure for a moment, but sooner or later, life will challenge those walls. Someone will leave. Something will break. A belief will collapse. And when that happens, you feel lost, broken, devastated. The very thing you thought would protect you becomes the cause of your suffering. But what happens when you stop clinging? When you let go, not out of indifference, but out of understanding? Something remarkable occurs. There is lightness. There is peace. The relationship becomes more alive because it's not burdened by fear and control. Success becomes more enjoyable because you're not obsessed with keeping it forever. Even loss becomes less painful because you see it as part of life's natural flow. When you let go, you don't really lose. You actually gain. You gain freedom. You gain clarity. You gain the ability to love without fear. This doesn't mean neglect. It doesn't mean you stop caring. Letting go doesn't mean turning your back on life. It means participating in life without trying to imprison it. It means loving fully, but without chains. It means enjoying success, but without obsession. It means allowing things to come and go, because that is their nature. Think of a bird. If you trap it in a cage, it will fight to escape. But if you leave your window open, it may choose to come back every day. Love works in the same way. The more you try to own it, the more it withers. The more you give it space, the more it grows. So the real challenge is not to learn how to hold on better. The real challenge is to understand why we cling at all. Can you watch your own mind when it is afraid of losing? Can you notice the moment when you reach out to secure something? In that observation, something changes. You see that your clinging doesn't protect you, it only creates pain. And in that seeing, letting go happens naturally. The paradox is clear. When you cling, you lose. When you let go, you keep. Not because life guarantees permanence, but because freedom is the only ground on which love, creativity, and joy can truly exist. Now ask yourself, what are you holding on to so tightly right now? A relationship? An idea of who you must be? A fear of the future? Look at it honestly. Feel the tension in that grip. And then ask, what if I allowed it to be free? What if I stopped trying to control the outcome? Maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that by letting go, you don't lose anything at all. Instead, you find yourself. There's a simple exercise you can try in your own life. Think of something you're deeply afraid of losing. It could be a relationship. It could be your career. It could be your reputation. Now watch what your mind does. You'll see it immediately creating strategies to protect that thing. You might start imagining worst-case scenarios. You might build walls in your heart. You might act in ways that are unnatural, just to avoid loss. And in those very actions, you set in motion the seeds of the very outcome you fear. For example, if you're terrified of losing someone, you may start checking up on them constantly. You may question them. You may hold them too close. At first, they may accept it. They may even find it flattering. But over time, that grip feels heavy. The relationship loses its lightness, its joy, and the love that once felt alive now feels like a duty. Slowly, almost without noticing, they drift away. The loss you feared was created by the fear itself. Krishnamurti once said, "Fear is always in relation to something. It's never abstract. You're not afraid of fear itself. You're afraid of losing, of not becoming, of not having. And when fear exists, love cannot. Because love that is entangled with fear is not really love, it's dependency, it's attachment, it's possession. And possession is always fragile. The real beauty of life appears when you begin to understand this mechanism. When you see that your fear of loss is the very thing that brings loss closer, you begin to let go naturally. Not as a strategy, not as a technique, but as a genuine insight. You realize that holding on doesn't actually give you security. It only creates conflict. And when this is seen deeply, not just intellectually, something shifts inside you. You start to live differently. Imagine living without fear of loss. What would your relationships look like? You wouldn't cling. You wouldn't demand. You wouldn't try to control. You would allow the other person to be completely free. And in that freedom, love becomes pure. Imagine working without fear of failure. You wouldn't be paralyzed. You wouldn't play it safe just to protect your image. You would take risks. You would be creative. You would explore. And in that exploration, success would come naturally. Not as something forced, but as a byproduct of freedom. When you live this way, even endings are not frightening. Because you see that endings are part of beginnings. You lose a job, and another path opens. You lose youth, and maturity brings its own depth. You lose someone you love, and though the pain is real, the love you shared is not destroyed. It becomes part of you. It continues, not as possession, but as memory, as understanding, as the very fabric of who you are. This perspective doesn't make you cold. On the contrary, it makes you more alive. You feel more deeply because you're not numbing yourself with fear. You connect more honestly because you're not trying to manipulate outcomes. You give more freely because you're not calculating what you might lose. Letting go is not weakness. It's strength. It's the courage to face life exactly as it is, without demanding it be different. Let's return to that image of sand in your hand. If you hold it lightly, it stays. If you crush it tightly, it escapes. This is how life works. This is how love works. This is how happiness works. The tighter you try to secure it, the faster it disappears. But when you allow it to flow, when you give it space, it has room to breathe. And in that space, life flourishes. So ask yourself honestly, where are you holding on too tightly? Is it your partner, your job, your self-image? Notice the tension that comes with that grip. Notice the constant anxiety, the endless what-ifs. And then ask, what would happen if I simply let go? Not abandon, not neglect. Just release the need to control. You may find that the very thing you feared losing doesn't go away at all. In fact, it may become even more alive, more present, more real. Because here's the paradox. When you let go, you gain. You gain freedom. You gain peace. You gain love in its purest form. And even if things change, as they always do, you don't break. You flow with life instead of fighting against it. And in that flow, there is beauty. There is wholeness. There is truth. When you look closely, you'll see that clinging is just another form of resistance. It's the mind saying, I don't want things to change. But life is nothing but change. Every breath you take is different from the last. Every sunrise is new. Every moment is fresh. So when the mind resists change, it resists life itself. And that resistance is what creates suffering. If you observe carefully, you'll notice that the moments when you feel most alive are the moments when you're not clinging at all. Think of when you're watching a sunset. You're not trying to hold it in place. You know it will fade, and that's part of the beauty. Or when you're listening to music. You don't grasp each note. You let them rise and fall. That freedom, that flow, is what makes it so moving. So the real question is, can we live our daily lives with that same openness? Can we allow relationships, work, and even our own sense of self to move freely, without trying to lock them down? Because maybe letting go isn't just a choice. Maybe it's the only way to truly live. In the end, we don't really lose by letting go. We lose only when we cling. Freedom, love, and peace exist when we stop trying to control life. To let go is not to abandon. It is to trust life's flow, and in that trust, everything remains.